Having never tried 3D printing, I always thought of it as a bit of a gimmick. It just seemed like a lazy way of creating models, so I never really considered it a legitimate tool for model building. However, they say don't knock it until you try it, so maybe it's about time I gave it a go. Greetings fellow Earthlings and welcome back to Darlingborough Sci-Fi Builds. Now, a bit of a controversial opinion, but I've never really been a huge fan of 3D printing. I've always viewed model building as something that should be done using more traditional methods, such as scratch building and kit bashing, which is how I've been building my Airlock Door diorama. In the last video, I added loads of extra details and greeblies to my model, including pipe work, tubing and some wires. I then turned my attention to the extractor fans that featured above the airlock door itself, and I'll be honest, I really wasn't particularly happy with how they looked. I decided that rather than trying to amend the designs I already had, I was going to create something completely different. Having found some wheels off a child's toy, sorry Nathan, but it was broken already, I promise. I started playing around with some ideas to see if I could come up with a better looking extractor unit. As I went through my collection of greeblies, I found a few small round pieces which I felt could be added to the wheels and make the extractor fans look more interesting. However, I eventually settled on trying to use some sink plug covers, and I felt that these would create a perfect looking grate. Having trimmed them down to size, I then hot glued them into the inside of the wheels, and I'll be honest, I think they look great. However, when I held them in place, I wasn't entirely convinced. I felt that they may have been too big. It was then that I decided to take a completely different approach to how I normally build models and go down the 3D printing route for the first time in my life. Having measured the size that the extractor unit should be, I then went onto the computer and started to play around with Onshape. Now, there were several reasons why I decided to use Onshape in particular. As well as being available online rather than having software to download, I was able to start and set up an account as a hobbyist for free. Always good. On top of that, I was more familiar with that as I had recently attended an introductory course to the software at my local hackspace. During the session, I managed to pick up some of the basics on how to use it, and then with the help of some additional YouTube videos, I started to get the hang of the software pretty quickly. Despite having very limited 3D experience in model making, I found Onshape quite easy to understand, and I was soon able to navigate the basics of the software well enough. Now, if you are interested in getting started with Onshape, I will leave some links to some resources down below, and just for clarification, Onshape have not sponsored this video. These are all my opinion. I started to play around with some ideas until I came up with this final design. It was then, for the first time in my life, time to print something in 3D. How would it work out? Now, I must admit, the first time I saw my 3D print come to life, I was incredibly excited. It was the first time I've ever created anything in 3D and see it be brought to life using a 3D printer. The printer I used was a Creality Ender 3. Even though I had reservations about filament-based printers, I was actually quite surprised with the level of detail that the printer produced. In total, the prints probably took a couple of hours for each extractor fan units, and maybe about another half an hour to 45 minutes for the actual fans themselves. Although I don't feel that I will be completely replacing how I build with 3D printing everything, I do feel that I will certainly be incorporating it into future builds. Now, if you are a model builder, it would be really interesting to know your opinions on using 3D printing as part of the model making process. For example, are you for or against using 3D printing, and why? If you do use 3D printing, then let me know what software and hardware you use as well. Do you prefer filament printers or resin printers? and what has determined that choice for you. Please leave all your feedback down in the comments down below. I'd be really happy to hear, and all of your comments are greatly appreciated. With regards to the gap in the middle between the fans above the airlock door, I decided to include some extra panelling. I had a choice of several panels which I could have used, some taken from the printer, which I have previously mentioned, and I was also considering part of a child's toy, which had interesting details on it as well. In the end, I decided to keep the panel fairly simple, as I wanted the focus in that area to be on the extractor fans themselves. Now, if you do like my extractor fan design and you would like to have a copy that you can 3D print as well, I have made it available on my Buy Me a Coffee page. The link is down below. I have made the files available completely free, although if you do want to make a donation, it would be appreciated. While you're on the Buy Me a Coffee page, you can actually buy me a coffee as well, or sign up to the members page and you can get exclusive early access to any videos I produce and put out on this channel. On top of that, I will be posting exclusive photos from any builds that I produce from this channel and also from my model railway channel, Darlingborough Model Railway as well. Speaking of donations, I want to give a massive thank you to DC9V, who has recently bought me a coffee on the page. Thank you very much, really appreciate it. So now that all of the details have been added, the model is more or less complete. All that remains is for me to paint the model, and that will be in the next video. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out.